Welcome to this Epilepsy 101 training. This is going to be a crash course in epilepsy and seizure disorders, what they look like, what they feel like, what triggers them, how they're treated. This is not meant to be comprehensive, but hopefully it gives a good overview, makes you a little more aware, and then if you or someone you know is experiencing these kind of things, hopefully you'll know the next step to take. If you wanted to take a deeper dive into this topic, into this condition, you could reach out to us. Everything we do is free here at the Epilepsy Foundation of Southeast Tennessee. One of those free services includes educational trainings. Or if you don't live in our geographic region, you could reach out to the Epilepsy Foundation in your state and probably get some good educational resources there as well.
Epilepsy occurs in about 1 in 100 individuals nationwide. That number doubles when you go to children under the age of 18, especially under the age of 12, and for individuals over the age of 65. There's also a 1 in 26 chance that you or that I will get epilepsy in our lifetime. Much more prevalent than people may think. The reason why we don't think, because there's so many different types of seizures. Seizures are the indicator that normally let us know, okay, something's not right with someone, something's not right with me. Then I may go see a neurologist, then I may get diagnosed with epilepsy. But most of us just think of convulsive seizures, big convulsive ones. Used to be called grand mal, now called tonic-clonic. Truth is, there's almost 40 different kinds of seizures. Because there's 40 different kinds, there's a lot of individuals who are having seizures, they have epilepsy, and they don't even know it. And because the seizures are so different from the big one, people around them don't know it. Therefore, people go undiagnosed for years. We want to make sure that we know what epilepsy, the definition of it is. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder marked by a sudden, recurrent episodes of sensory disturbance, loss of consciousness, or convulsions. This is associated with abnormal activity in the brain. The neurons misfire. Something triggers it. We'll go over triggers in a second. Because of this misfiring in the brain, the body responds. What is a seizure? A seizure is a sudden surge of electrical activity in the brain. Continuing on with this crash course, we're going to look at common types of seizures and their symptoms, indicators you can look for to tell if something's happening. We'll look at triggers, identify some of the most popular ones, and we'll briefly discuss treatment options. It's important to know that you don't always have to call the ambulance when someone has a tonic-clonic seizure. If they have a history of seizures and the seizure lasts for less than 5 minutes, the individual does not injure themselves, or there's not another thing present, like say, for instance, someone's pregnant at the same time. If it goes less than 5 minutes, then you don't need to necessarily call the ambulance. The seizure will be over with, the person will be exhausted, they may chew their tongue badly, but they will not swallow their tongue. They may be wiped out. But just remember that every time you take a ride in an ambulance and it's not needed, that's $1,000 roughly, depending on the area where you live.
Bless you, William. Haley, what's up? Haley, what's up?
Oh, thank you, William. That's what sharing. See, so it's right out. You got it? Yeah, they're sharing.
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Wow. I need pops.
Whoa, check out those pops. Haley. 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 Hi. Can you hear me? Oh, Joey, hi. Voice, please. Okay. Scratch. Don't scratch.
Okay, that video is pretty hard to tell what's happening. Is this just a kid spacing out, losing track of time, not paying attention? If every time a kid stared off, didn't pay attention to an adult, and acted confused meant they were having seizures, then that means every child is having seizures. So it can't just be that. There's little things to look for. Usually the eyes and the body do things out of the norm, and the person's not aware that they're doing those things. And that part's pretty crucial.
Connor. Connor. Get him out. Get him out. Connor. Hurry up.
What do you notice about the little boy in that clip? You notice his eyes look like they're about to close. Maybe he's getting sleepy, but they kind of pull over to the side, which is out of the norm. You also notice his legs. His legs get really stiff, which is unusual when a child's sitting. Their legs usually are going to fold down. So the eyes and the body are doing things out of the norm. That tells you something's a little bit off. The parents get him out of his seat. They're able to do that because his body's not convulsing and twitching. It's a little safer to move him out of his seat, get him on the ground, which is in the recovery position, get them on their side. This is going to help with a couple of things. It could be easier to breathe. Also, an individual may vomit when they have a seizure. A number of the types of seizures may lead to someone vomiting. This way, if they're on their side, whatever happens is probably going to come out, as opposed to them being on their back and they could choke on it, them being face down and they could smother in it. The last type of seizure we'll take a look at is called a complex partial seizures. These can be very hard to understand what's going on when you see this. If you saw this in public, you might think someone was inebriated. Maybe they're on drugs. Maybe they're having some kind of psychotic break. It looks like a variety of things. There's some key differences between the things I just mentioned and someone having a complex partial seizure. So we'll break down a video right now and try to give you some hints and some clues as how you can tell the difference between a seizure and some of those other types.
Whoa. That is trippy.
Thank you. He's coming out.
No, go back. Go back.
What?
Go sit down.
What's going on, man?
Brother.
You're gripping your skin too hard. There you go.
Oh yeah, for the record, it's August 21st, 2009 at 7:03 p.m.
You're okay, sweet.
As we mentioned before, the eyes and the body usually do things out of the norm. You notice with this gentleman, obviously his eyes are very wide. He seems very focused on something.
Okay, you're alright. You're okay.
As time goes on, now you start to see those things subside. You see the chewing slow down. You see his eyes now focusing on someone who's near him. The pupils start to return to normal. So now he's getting back to how he was perhaps before the seizure. He may not be fully aware of it, but now you see those symptoms subside. Another thing to be aware of is that this type of seizure may occur at nighttime. Some other seizures could occur at nighttime as well, but this one in particular, if someone got up in the middle of the night, wide-eyed, walking through the house, a weird chomping, not talking, you might think they're sleepwalking. Key differences, though, between someone sleepwalking and someone who's having this type of complex partial seizure. A sleepwalker tends to do things. They come and they check the refrigerator. They come and maybe even make food. They rearrange the cabinets. They check the mail. They turn on the TV. They might do things or get up and say things, have full conversations, come down and even look at you, look like they're talking to you. Next day, they remember none of these actions. They remember none of these things that they did. It could look a lot like what we just saw that gentleman doing. Key difference though, when someone has a complex partial seizure, usually they don't do anything definable, and they're typically not having conversations at all. Usually they're quiet, not talking, maybe they're making a sound, maybe they're caught on a loop, and they might be moving around but not really doing anything. Also, sleepwalkers, for whatever reason, they tend to return to their bed when everything is said and done. The brain gets them back there even if they don't remember what they did. Someone having a complex partial seizure will probably not return to bed. You might find them in a strange room the next day. You may see that they lost control of their bowels in a weird place. Those are all symptoms and signs of someone having a seizure. All right, we just have 2 more things to look at, and then we'll be entirely through. The first thing would be the triggers. What could cause someone to have a seizure, maybe for the first time, or the thing that could trigger someone to have a seizure now that they have a history of having seizures. And the other thing would be treatments. Not all the treatments, but some of the basic treatments that someone might receive when they're trying to manage their epilepsy. As of right now, 2018, there's no cure for epilepsy, but there are ways to treat it and to manage it and to try to keep it under control. When you think of the things that could trigger someone to have a seizure, another way to think of it is similar to electricity. We have an outlet here. You can plug quite a few things into this outlet. Once you plug too many things into the outlet, though, you're going to get a response. And it's similar to your brain. You can plug a lot of things into your brain. Some of those triggers that we just looked at are things that you and I live with every day. Enough of those things start to pile up, and the brain's going to respond in some way. It may not be a seizure, but the brain may respond in a different way, and it's still a similar type of thing that happens when someone has a seizure. When it comes to treating epilepsy and managing your seizures, one of the most important first steps is to go see a neurologist. If possible, have someone film the seizures beforehand, or at least film the things that you think might be seizure activity so that you can show the neurologist. This will aid in the process, hopefully help speed things up. Eventually, they're going to want you to take an EEG. They're going to hook up the nodes onto the brain, onto the head. It reads brainwave activity. They actually try to have the person have a seizure while they're hooked up so they can read brainwave activity and tell, is that an epileptic seizure or is it something else? It may sound kind of strange, but that's part of the process. Once that takes place, then they're going to figure out what's the medication this person needs to take. Take the medicine. Has to be taken regularly, has to be taken when it's prescribed, how much the dose is, all those things. Just recently, in the summer of 2018, there is an FDA-approved drug that has elements of CBD oil in it. That may be something you want to Google search, CBD oil, and talk to a neurologist to see would that be a good option for you. Other thing we need to do is figure out what are the triggers that are causing the seizures and reduce the triggers. That's going to be a big thing. Other treatments include brain surgery, where they actually go in and cut out the part of the brain where the seizure activity is occurring. That may be something to talk to a neurologist about to see if you qualify for that. And then there's 2 special implants, the VNS and the RNS implant. Here's kind of a brief overview of how they work.
Very basic terms, the vagus nerve stimulator is a device used to treat seizures when seizure drugs may not be as effective and surgery is not possible. The VNS looks kind of like a little pacemaker, and it has a generator in there that is implanted in the chest wall, programmed by a physician to stimulate the vagus nerve that runs up the side of your neck and connects to the brain. This stimulator is set at a certain frequency, and it'll send an impulse of stimulation to the brain, hopefully knocking out a seizure before it occurs or lessening one while it's occurring. The individual will also have a magnet with them, and they can swipe the magnet over the device, and that will jumpstart the stimulation. You, as a bystander, could also take that magnet and swipe it over the person's device to jumpstart the stimulation as well. The RNS, or the responsive neurostimulator, is similar in some ways to the VNS. It automatically monitors the brain's signals and provides stimulation to abnormal electrical events just when it is needed. It is placed under the scalp and within the skull by a surgeon. 1 or 2 leads are then placed at the seizure target and connected to the neurostimulator.
If you'd like to take a more in-depth look at epilepsy and seizure disorders and everything we just went over, but in a longer version and in person, we would love to come do that and provide a free educational training. Whether it's at a school where 1 in 50 children are affected, whether it's in the workplace, senior center where 1 in 50 over the age of 65 are affected, community center, Bible study group, at your church, wherever it might be. We'd love to come and share more epilepsy education with you. You'll see some contact information there, maybe there, and somewhere over there again too. So please reach out to us. Let's set up a time to share more epilepsy awareness, and let's help fight epilepsy in whatever way that we can.